So now Money gets back into prison. He's in maximum security again, and they take him out to the yard. And in the yard, he goes into one of the cages with one of the other guys. What we don't realize yet, this was all part of his plan. He knew that when he killed this guy, he was going to get life, but he wanted to get life. Why? And the whole reason was he never forgot that the shot caller threatened his family. He didn't like that. Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody's doing well. And today is another Mob Movie Monday. Definitely a favorite of most all of my followers. So today we're going to do something a little different. You know, there's only so many mob movies or Italian mob movies, Mafia, Cosa Nostra movies that are out there that are really worth reviewing. We've done a lot of them. You know, there are some more coming up. We've done a lot of them. There are a few more that I intend to review. But today I'm going to diverse a little bit. And we're going to do a movie called Shot Caller. If you haven't seen it, it's a Netflix film, extremely well done, and I recommend it. I don't know anybody that doesn't have Netflix today. Maybe some of you don't. But it was really a good film, and it's talked about a lot on YouTube. It really is. I like the film. It was a prison movie, basically, and the guy, Nikolaj Coster-Waldau, I think his name is, he was one of the main characters in Game of Thrones, a series that I loved. Jon Bernthal, another great actor. He's done a number of mob movies. I like him a lot. They're talking about him playing my dad in the upcoming series on my life. I would love to see him there. He's a brilliant actor, and he does a great job in this movie as he does in every movie. So it's really a different kind of a story. And I want to tell you this before we start. I've either been in prison or visiting prison basically my whole life until my father passed away a year and a half ago, I should say. So I know the prison life pretty well, I have to say. I did 8 years inside myself. I've been arrested a number of times, spent nights overnight in jails in various situations. But I want to be honest, I've never really spent a lot of time or any time in a state prison. All my time was done federally, except for an 11-month stretch that I did in the LA County Jail. And the two systems are very different. And I don't tell you things that I don't know. So I'm not going to say I'm intimately familiar with the state prison systems here in California. That's where this takes place. But I do know enough about it to talk about it, I would say. But again, they're two very different systems. For instance, in the state system, you do have a lot of gang activity. And in some state prisons, the gangs really run the show there. And I think I'm not talking out of turn when I say this. I know this for a fact. People have done time. They'll know it too. Federal system is quite different. They don't allow that to happen. Because they have prisons all over the country, they do their research, and people that have gang affiliations, they try to separate them. In my situation, because Cosa Nostra, obviously there was a lot of us in prison, they were careful not to put too many of us together at one time. Yes, we were in the same prisons, but we were a different breed. We weren't trying to run the prison. We weren't, causing any issues in there. We weren't doing drug dealing in there. Some of these other groups, there were. Mexican Mafia, Aryan Brotherhood, yes, they were doing those kind of things. It's a fact. You could look it up. So in a federal prison, they try to break that up. They don't want that to happen, and they have the ability to do that because they put you in different places all over the country. And there's a lot of people in federal prison that are on separation from one another. And they flag you and they make sure you don't go to the same place, so they don't have that kind of gang activity and gang problems. This film is basically about the gang situation in the prisons. There's more to it than that. Let me give you kind of a breakdown of the story. Nicholas plays a guy by the name of Money. He's a legitimate guy the way it starts out. He's a stockbroker. He's got a great family, married, he's got a little boy. And he's a legitimate guy, and it shows you that way. He plays basketball, he's got friends in the legitimate world. One night he's coming home from a party, had a little bit too much to drink. He takes his eye off the road. He's got two of his friends in the back, a husband and wife. His wife is sitting in the front. He runs a red light, boom, auto accident. Person in the back gets killed. They eventually charge him with manslaughter because he was drunk at the time, or his alcohol level was too high. And his lawyer advises him to take a plea. Now, his wife is destroyed. She knew it was an accident. But the lawyer is saying, listen, you're facing 7 years, tough case to beat. Take a plea. I can work out a deal where you get 16 months. You'll be home in, a year. It's the best deal. The wife is against it. He's thinking about it. He's a stockbroker. He's scared. It's not that he wants to do this, but, you got to take the best deal that's offered to you. So he takes the deal. And then in summary, this is a straight, legitimate guy who undergoes an amazing transformation, and not for the good, not for the better part. He undergoes an amazing transformation in prison because he gets involved with the Aryan Brotherhood and becomes a gang member. I'm going to be honest with you, I have never seen a transformation of that kind. I've seen guys come in prison that were legitimate guys. You see that a lot in the federal system. A lot of people come into the system that were charged and convicted of fraud in some way. A lot of bankers, a lot of legitimate people. They come in and they make somewhat of a transformation, but I've never seen anything as dynamic as what you're going to see in this film, because of his involvement, with the Aryan Brotherhood. The good thing about it, I would say, is that this is a family man. He loves his family, loves his wife, loves his son, and he does have a good moral compass because everything that he does throughout the film are for two reasons. Number one, to survive inside the prison, and number two, to preserve his family. You see throughout the film that his wife is coming to visit him. They got financial problems, obviously. They're being sued for wrongful death because of the person that got killed in the car. So a lot of stuff is going on the outside. And people, I will tell you this. I visited my dad for, almost 40 years. I did time myself. Prison is not conducive to a good family life. Most of the guys that go to prison, their family is disrupted. In many, many parts, it's broken up. It just doesn't work. The separation doesn't work. Most guys that come into prison, they come in broke. They can't support their families. And it really doesn't work out in most cases. That's been my experience. It's what I've witnessed and what I've seen. Even my dad. One of the reasons I went out on the street, because we needed to earn money. There is a myth out there that, you're in a mob life, you go to prison, and all of a sudden the family is taking care of you. They're throwing money at you. That's not true. It's not true in our case at all. My dad had money on the street. It was his money. It was Shylock money that he had. It was a business that he had. He had a tailor shop, a couple of things that he had going on. That money was collected for him and given to my mother every month. But when that money ran out, that was it. Nobody was giving him anything. And I realized that. And he spoke to me about that. And I knew I had to get out on the street and earn money to help support my family, my mother, my brothers and sisters. I had 3 younger kids in the family. So it's tough. You're in there, you're not earning a living. In this guy's case, initially he was only there for 16 months. And even then it was tough for him to survive financially. They were starting to have a lot of issues. So you see that starting to develop. Well, what happens is the guy is out in the yard in a tough state prison in California, and he gets into, a little issue with a guy, and he attacks him in the yard, and they fight, right? Well, as a result, he gets put in a hole. That's a tough experience. Let me tell you. I remember I had visited my father for years, but I still remember the first time that I walked through the prison door. And, in the federal system, the way I went in, I was in MDC, the federal jail in New York. I didn't get to turn myself in. I couldn't do that. It's nice when you have the ability to do that because then you turn yourself in right to the prison that you're designated to. I didn't have that choice. I was locked up already. When I was designated to first Arizona, prison in Arizona, I was in New York. So they had to transport me through the prison system. That's not fun. I spent time in Lewisburg. I spent time in Oklahoma. It took me 3 or 4 months to get across country to get into Arizona, the prison that I was going to be in there. It's a rough experience, I can tell you that much. It really is. So I can imagine how he felt. A legitimate guy. Now, for me, I was visiting prisons, my whole life. I knew what to expect. But it's still kind of, okay, here I am. This is it. Reality sets in. I got a 10-year prison sentence, and this is it. I'm in it. It's not a good feeling. I can imagine how this guy felt. A stockbroker, legitimate guy, an accidental death. He didn't mean it. He's not a criminal. He's really not a criminal, but he got charged with a crime. I'm sure he felt scared, obviously, and just felt alone. He's in there, he doesn't know anybody, he doesn't know the prison system, he doesn't know the protocol, he has no idea. So anyhow, he gets in this fight in the yard, beats a guy up, and they put him in a hole. Now he's in lockdown for the first time. Comes out of the hole, Some of the guys on the yard in the Aryan Brotherhood, they kind of noticed how he went after this guy on the yard. They call him over. Jon Bernthal, who's Aryan Brotherhood, he's an associate of the main guy, a guy by the name of Bottles, I think he is, brings him over to meet Bottles. And they basically tell him on the yard, look, you want to fit in with us? You want to be a loner, or you want to be in with us? If you want to be in with us, you look like you handled yourself pretty well, but you got to work your way in. There's no free rides here, no free lunch, doesn't matter who you are. I can relate to that. As a member of Cosa Nostra, you know, a lot of people like to say, well, Michael, you were a racketeer, you weren't a thug, you weren't a street guy. True, 100%. I came basically out of college and got involved in this life. But once I sat down and once I became a recruit, that's it. You got to prove yourself, people. Nobody just hands it to you. Oh, well, you know, you're your father's son. That's true. There is a lot of nepotism in that life. Joe Colombo brought his kids in. Carmine Persico Jr. brought his kids in. Gambino brought his kids in. It's like the entertainment business. You know, it's nepotism. You bring people in, you think they can be trusted and can handle the life. Now, I had another brother that wasn't involved. Two brothers that weren't involved. If your father thinks you can handle it, he proposes you, you're in. It's just the way it goes. But once you get in, you're told straight out, it's not about your father anymore. This is about you. You got to prove yourself. Same thing in prison. You know, you go on, you got to prove yourself. They gave him a couple of little things to do, and then it came to a point where he had to commit a murder. Guy's scared. He didn't want to do it. He's with another guy in his cell. Some guy was greenlit. I think that's the expression that they use. And he had to commit a murder. Oh, by the way, this guy Bottles was kind of the shot caller. The name of the movie, I haven't told you what that means yet. If you don't know what it means, the shot caller is kind of the head of the gang. You know, the Aryan Brotherhood, he's the head of the gang. He worked his way up. And he's the guy that calls the shots within the prison. And in the state prison, a lot of these gangs pretty much ran the prison. So he's the shot caller. Is he the toughest guy? Possibly. But as a shot caller, he should be the smartest guy. Because it's not his job to kill everybody in the yard. It's not his job to start fights with every other group. You had the Aryan Brotherhood, you had the Mexican Mafia, you had different groups. Your job is not to start fighting with everybody. Your job is try to make time work. Try to keep peace on the yard, but when you got to green light somebody, pull the trigger, you got to do it. And so the shot caller is a guy that's got to be fairly smart, pretty smart. He's got to know what he's doing, but he's got to also let people know that he's willing to do the dirty work. He's already done it because he's worked himself up to that position. So he's told by Bottles, there's a hit, and you're the guy that's got to do it. Money is saying, man, how am I going to survive in here? Either I'm going to be a loner or I'm going to get involved with the gang. Very interesting. Do you have to be involved with a gang in that life? The answer is no. Prison life, the answer is no. You don't have to be. Certain people in certain situations may want to be. Certain people in certain situations may think this is the best move for me. It might be the only move for some. But across the board, in every case, it's not what everyone has to do. But sometimes to survive in there, yes, it might be the best route. Obviously, if you get involved in that in there, it's a whole different life you're leading. Everything changes for you in there. Another term that they use, by the way, is being validated if you're a mob member, a gang member. I wouldn't call it mob, I'll call it gang. If you're a gang member, validated. What does that mean? That means that all of law enforcement at that point in time designates you as a certified, bona fide gang member. And if you're that, you're looked at differently in there, obviously by the inmates, okay, but more importantly by the administration. It can mean more time for you because as a gang affiliate, it goes on your jacket. I had OC on my jacket. It meant a whole different thing. I was everything that occurred with me in prison. Because I was a mob affiliate, any movement on my part, anything that was done had to be approved by Washington because I was a validated, and that, I don't know if they use the term for Mafia and La Cosa Nostra, but because I was a certified Mafia guy, I was under that kind of watch in there. So, validated. And gang members, I don't know if they want to be validated. You know, I guess within the gang they want to be because then they're bona fide, but you don't really want to be validated by the administration because, again, it's tougher time. Now, we see Money. He's really going into a whole new personality change, carrying himself differently. He's thinking differently. Now he's worried about his family. He made a move to survive in prison. What is that going to mean about his life in general? And one thing interesting about this movie that worked very well, and oftentimes it doesn't, but in this movie I thought it worked very well. They used a lot of flashbacks. They kept going back and forth, but they told the story very well with the flashbacks. They were going present time, going back, and they were telling the story in that way. And I think it was really effective. It really worked. Filmmakers did a good job. So throughout the film, we see him, number one, trying to preserve his family life on the outside. Number two, trying to survive now as an Aryan Brotherhood guy on the inside. And we're seeing this going back and forth. We see him being released, and he goes to visit his parole officer, and his PO, runs the riot act down to him, what he's going to do. He's going to be watching him. He's affiliated with Aryan Brotherhood, and so on and so forth. So what he's trying to do now, Money, he comes to the decision that he has to break away from his family. I didn't quite get that. I didn't experience anything like that. Didn't quite get it. But because of his affiliation with Aryan Brotherhood, he now has to break away from his family. He doesn't even want to see his son. As a matter of fact, the film opens with him writing a letter to his son, telling him, basically, take care of your mother, do the right thing, but I'm not going to see you anymore. And he thought to preserve his family's life, he would have to disassociate with himself with them. There is a scene at some point where he hadn't seen his wife. He had just gotten out of prison, hadn't seen her. He made some money in different deals that he did. He's sitting down in a restaurant with her, and he hands her some banking information. It says, there's $178,000 in this account. You're not going to see me anymore because of my affiliation, but that's for you and my son. She doesn't even want to accept it. She's so upset with him. For 7 years, I haven't seen you. You totally disregarded us. You abandoned us. Obviously, very, very upsetting. But he's made his mind up. He thinks in order to preserve his family, you know what? I respect him for that. Obviously, throughout the film, we respect him because his family really did come first. And towards the end of the film, that he really drives that home. But anyway, he hands her that, and he says, you're not going to see me again. This is it. I'm done. And he leaves her. And now, on the outside, he is setting up a deal. He was ordered by the shot caller in prison when he got outside to do a weapons deal with the Mexican mafia. At first he objects. He said, hey, I'm going to be on parole. This scene happens in the prison with the shot caller. He said, I'm going to be on parole. How am I going to do that? And the shot caller says to him, hey, your membership doesn't end when you get out of prison. You do what you're told if you want to see your family again. He basically threatens his family. Now, Money doesn't like that. He doesn't say anything. He says, okay. His family comes first. So he gets out. He meets with Jon Bernthal, Shotgun, they call him in the film. And they're starting to set up this deal because Shotgun brought somebody around that was in the military, and he was the guy that actually was able to get the weapons. Shotgun puts this guy with Money, and he's kind of like his driver. In the conversation that they have, this guy says that he doesn't really want to be part of the gang. He's just setting up this deal. He wants to make some money. And I think Money appreciated that, that this kid didn't want to get involved because at the end of the day, he knew it wasn't the right thing. It just happened to him, circumstance, decision he made when he was in prison. So now this whole deal is setting up the weapons deal on the outside. As we move along, we find out that Shotgun, Jon Bernthal, becomes an informant. He's working with the DA and the parole officer, and he's telling them about this weapons deal that's going to go down. Problem is, they had tight security on this, both the Mexican Mafia and the Aryan Brotherhood, and they didn't give him enough information to let him know when this actual transaction is going to take place. Little does Shotgun know that Money suspects him of not being right. He's a smart guy. He suspects him, so he follows him, and he sees Shotgun talking to the parole officer and the DEA agent, so he knows he's now an informant. He knows there's a problem. What does he do? He goes to see Shotgun in a hotel. The deal is set up. The DEA and a parole officer are waiting for information from Shotgun. The reason Shotgun becomes an informant, supposedly his wife got locked up, or his girlfriend, whoever it was, I think it was his wife, and he's trying to make a deal to get her out. By being an informant, they said that they'll cut her some slack, get her out of prison. That's why he turned. Money goes to visit him at his hotel. He doesn't suspect anything, Shotgun at that point. Money comes in, they get into a fight, Money stabs him, he ends up killing him. That's it. He has 2 phones on him, Jon Bernthal does, Shotgun does. Okay, one of the phones, obviously he was using to alert the parole officer and the DEA as to what was going on. He was providing information through that phone. Nobody else knew about it. So again, Money being the smart guy, he starts to think of different things to do to try to help himself and help his family. He's starting to think of things because he sees what's going on here. Didn't like the fact that the shot caller threatened his family. Didn't sit well with him. And that's why I'm saying this guy did have a moral compass. You almost feel bad that he got involved in the Aryan Brotherhood to the extent that he did. Changed his whole life. What a transformation. Can't believe it. So now Money devises this plan, and he gets the kid. They go to see the weapons. They're all there. But he suspects something. So now the day the transaction is supposed to happen between the Mexican Mafia and the Aryan Brotherhood, they're driving in the car with the weapons. We see that they go to a storage unit, and they get the weapons out of there. Everybody's asking, where's Shotgun? Who knows? We don't know. He didn't show up. Money says, let's do the deal. Forget about Shotgun. We don't know what happened. Nobody knows that he killed him. The parole officer goes in and finds out. Okay, he sees it. He alerts the DEA. He says, hey, now we don't know what's going on. But little does he know that he left that phone and that Money had planned to let him know what was going to go down. So now they're driving to meet the Mexican Mafia. Money is in the car with the kid that set up the weapons deal. Money asks him for his gun as they're driving, takes his gun, points it at his head, and says, okay, tell me what the deal was with Shotgun. The kid first lies. Then he says, if you don't tell me, Money says, I'm going to blow your brains out. Kid breaks. He says, okay, we have some more weapons stashed someplace else. He and I were going to whack that up later on. We only gave you a certain amount of what we had. So now Money, again, very, very interesting. He doesn't want to hurt this kid. He tells him, get out of the car. If I ever see you or hear your name again anywhere around here, I'm going to kill you. He tells him, get out of the car. He makes him jump out while the car is going. He really did it for his protection. He didn't want him involved in this deal because he knew he was going to alert the authorities that the deal was going down. He wanted to protect this kid. That's why he made him jump out of the car. So now the transaction is happening. Mexican Mafia is waiting at the designated place. Money arrives with the guns. He gets to the head of the Mexican Mafia guy. They get in face to face, and he says, look, he said, they were holding out on you. Shotgun had more weapons put on the side. It's not part of this deal. But let's let this deal go down. Keep it between you and I, and we'll whack up the rest later on. We'll make our own deal. It'll only be between you and I. Head of the Mexican Mafia agrees. They shake hands. That's it. On the way down, Money had alerted the parole officer and the DEA, gave him the coordinates of where this exchange was taking place. Within 2 minutes, boom, sirens going. The authorities, law enforcement raids them. They all get locked up. The law enforcement confiscates the weapons. Money gets back. He gets put into prison. Let me tell you this, some things I do relate about, the prison situation. It was a high security, maximum security prison that they were in. And some things I do relate to. When I was in the hole, when I was in lockdown in LA County Jail, they were supposed to give us 5 hours a week yard time. And the yard was a cage. It wasn't a cage like you see in this film. In this film, the cages were kind of set away from the rest of the building. They were actual cages that they put the guys in, and each, one guy per cage. So now we see another scene where he gets put into a cage next to the shot caller. The shot caller was the guy that ordered him to do the exchange. Well, the shot caller realizes, he says, wait a second, you're the guy that set this thing up. There's a scene in there. He said, you set it up. You alerted the authorities, because he realized the timing between the time that Shotgun was found dead and that the authorities were alerted. Shotgun was already dead when the authorities were alerted, so he knew that it had to be Money. So now shot caller tells him, we're going to kill your wife and your son. That's it, you're done. Money says, okay. What we had seen prior, a little indication, we didn't know what was going on, but Money had smuggled in a razor and a key. And what he does is, as he's being let out of his cell, the cop, the CO, he unloosens his handcuffs and he grabs the CO, puts him back in his cell, locks it up. Now that CO was a dirty cop. He was going along with, he was on the payroll of the shot caller and the Aryan Brotherhood. And he opens the cell to the shot caller and he's got his blade and they fight. End of story. Money kills him. Bloody scene, messy scene, he kills him. He goes back to the cop and he says, look, you saw what happened? Here's what you're going to do. You're going to tell him he attacked me and this was self-defense. I'm the shot caller from this point on. If you do it the right way, you can continue the job that you have in here. We'll continue to keep you on your payroll, but this is how you got to do it. The cop goes along with it. I call him a cop, he's a CEO, same thing. So now the next scene, Money, who now knows he's going to get life in prison, but at least he got even with the guy, and he becomes a shot caller. He got even with the guy that said he was going to kill his wife and son, so he preserved their life. That was his whole objective throughout this. He wanted to preserve the life of his family. The guy did have a moral compass in that way. So now the next scene, we see him telling his parole officer, this is a gift. He has a phone, and he texts the parole officer, this is a gift, and he tells him where the remaining weapons were that shotgun was hiding. Parole officer goes there, he finds the weapons, he's a hero now, right? Cut to the next scene. We see money is in the cage out in the yard. The authorities approach him and they say, look, we're validating you, meaning you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison in maximum security. That's it, done. Unless you talk to us. Become an informant, a snitch. He refuses. The parole officer then takes a shot at him. He comes up and he says, look, man, I just don't understand you. He couldn't understand the way this guy was operating. And he says, look, I'm going to make you an offer. He says, and I don't care what anybody says, what I tell you I can do, I'm going to do. He said, I'll get you out of here. You won't do another day in prison. You'll be reunited with your wife and your son, and you can go out and live your life. He says, but you got to give up the shot caller and everybody else. Basically, Money looks at him and says, not going to happen. Done deal. He doesn't want to take a chance on the outside. He just wants his wife and son to be okay. That's it. The parole officer says, when I leave here, the deal is done. It's over with. He said, I have authority to give you this deal right now. Once I walk away, it's over. He leaves. Money says, no deal. Parole officer leaves. Now, people, I want to tell you something. I don't know how realistic that is. I really mean that. You know, I'm going to tell you this right now. Most of the guys that turn informant, they don't want to do the prison time. That's the bottom line. You're going to face life in prison, especially in that situation, maximum security for the rest of your life, and you're offered a deal where you can walk out, give up these guys, and especially today, we'll put you in a witness protection program, we'll give you money, we'll move you wherever you got to move you. Don't worry about the rest of the guys, they're all going to jail anyway. Most of the time, 99% of the time, I'd even go that high with that figure, that guys turn informant is because they don't want to do the prison time. I'm not saying in every situation, I'm not condemning anybody, I'm not pointing fingers, I'm telling you that's my experience. They don't want to do the time, especially if it's time like that. In this case, he said, no, I don't know how realistic that is. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know too many guys that would do that. Sonny Franzese, they would do it. No doubt. John Gotti, I think he would do it too. I don't know too many more guys that would do it. I'm going to be real honest with you. You're asking me if I would do it? I'm going to be honest with you, man. I don't know. Praise God, I wasn't in that situation, but I don't know. I'm not sitting in front of you trying to be a hero. I don't want to hurt anybody. I made sure that I didn't put anybody in prison. I know people go, oh, Michael, yes, I told you this. I sat down with the authorities. We spoke, and as long as I knew nobody was going to be hurt or go to prison, that's all I cared about. I don't want to hurt anybody. You got to do what you got to do, okay, to try to preserve your life. But you don't want to put people in prison. You don't want to hurt your friends. I had friends in that life, and I didn't want to hurt any one of them. And that's me, okay? You can say what you want, but that's me. Call me whatever you want. That's how I dealt with it. But if I was in that situation, I don't know. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know. That's a very difficult situation to be in. And I'm being as honest as I possibly can with you. Most of the guys that go down, they just don't want to go prison. Now, you know something? If you're facing a couple of years, man up, do the time. I got a 10-year prison sentence. I did 8. I didn't cooperate in that deal at all. I had a straight plea agreement, did my time, paid the money. That was it. There was no cooperation involved with that. 10 years? If I'm a guy in that life and I can't do 7, 8, 9, 10 years, shame on me. So I did my time in that regard. Okay, but when you're facing life or you're facing a death penalty, different situation. You know, who knows? Anyway, I'm being as honest as I possibly can with you. So anyhow, that's how the film ends. One more very touching scene that I thought it really kind of got to me. After all this is over, Money's in his cell. He receives a letter from his son. And he opens it up and he reads it. And his son says to him, you know what, Dad, I'm moving on. I'm going to do what you told me to do. He says, I think I understand what you did. He said, I'm going to take care of Mom, and I'm going to move on with my life, basically cutting you out of my life. And you see Money there, and he's very emotional. He's looking at a picture of his family, and he's got tears in his eyes. And I think he accomplished in the end of it, what he wanted to do. Very touching scene, at least I thought. Anybody that's been in prison, man, and you spent those nights, especially on the holidays, worrying about your family, looking at those photos, what are they doing right now? Am I ever going to see them again? You know, there was a time when, I think I told this story before, when they were trying to indict me on murder charges and all of this. I didn't know if I was ever going to see the street again. And people, let me tell you, that's tough. You know, to live the rest of your life in a 6x8 cell. You know, people have asked me this. I wonder how controversial this is going to be. Do I believe in the death penalty? The answer is no. Absolutely not. Why? Because the system doesn't always get it right. There was a lot of people on death row that were freed later on from DNA testing. The system does not always get it right. And in a civilized system, a civilized government, if you put one person to death unjustly, the whole system is bad. So I don't believe in the death penalty. Okay? I say knock it out. Oh, but some people don't deserve to live. Let me tell you something. Go lock yourself up in a 6x8 cell 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and tell me what would you rather do, especially if you're young. Would you rather do that for the rest of your life, or would you rather just say, hey, put me to sleep and let me end it? Because I'll tell you what, if I was in that situation for the rest of my life, okay, total lockdown, never seeing my family again, having to put them through the agony of coming to visit me, seeing those letters, I don't know, man. Put me to sleep. That's no way to live. If you think life in prison, in a hardcore prison, is a walk in the park, you're out of your mind. Put yourself in that situation. Some people couldn't even make it through the pandemic, okay? They were going out of their mind. Imagine being in a high security prison in 24-hour lockdown for the rest of your life. Put me to sleep. Yeah, I mean that. I'm saying that now. But I don't believe in the death penalty, and I told you why. System has to be 100% accurate in order to put somebody to death. If you put somebody to death unjustly, the whole thing falls apart. And unfortunately, it's been done, and too many times it's been done. So there you go, another Mob Movie Monday review. Shot Caller, catch it on Netflix. I think you'll enjoy it. MichaelFranzese.com. Crew is growing. Jump on board. You're missing out. I'm telling you, the crew is free. Get something for nothing. Jump in. A lot of great content. Good stuff. The YouTube Live that we're doing, we're going to be doing another one. We're going to be doing a couple of them, so stay tuned. We're going to be announcing it. And of course, the Inner Circle. Man, I love everybody in my Inner Circle, and it's growing. Every week we're getting more people on board, doing a lot more things. I want to give you good advice, leadership, business, life skills, people sharing and encouraging one another. It's the place to be right now, especially after this pandemic as we get out and get back to normal life. So that's it. How do I always leave you? Be safe, be healthy, God bless you all, and yes, I'll see you next time.